The Greatest Showman is directed by Michael Gracie and stars Hugh Jackman as P.T. Barnum. And Happy New Year to everybody! This is the first review of 2018. I'm really excited to start off a new year. So like I mentioned, Hugh Jackman plays P.T. Barnum, a young tailor's boy who falls in love with this girl who is from a very established household. He marries her, but he wants to give her this great life, but he is unable to achieve that because of his own financial troubles. And so he one day has an idea to start off his own theater troupe of sorts and bring in these very unique people from very different backgrounds and bring them together and form a very unique experience that people can come and see. It's not always the most smooth ride for him because there are times where people are frowning upon these very different kinds of people, and that's what makes Barnum Circus such an amazing thing for people to come to. This is actually based on a true story. It's based on the real life story of P.T. Barnum and about how he reinvented show business. And there are things in it which are definitely changed up, or they have been modified to make certain things in the movie in terms of the story possible, or make it more relatable at points. There are stories about P.T. Barnum not being the greatest person also, and I don't know too much about that stuff, but I do know about the fact that he did start this entire thing together. So how is this movie? This is a musical. This is actually the second Hugh Jackman musical that I have personally seen after Les Miserables, and in that sense, I mean, Hugh Jackman as a musician is really great. He also had a one-man Broadway show at a point. He was really good. He's a really great singer, and in terms of that, this is a very good movie. The musical part of this film is amazing. This is some of the best musical stuff I've heard in a movie in a very long time. This is very extravagant. The lyrics are really, really great. It's very well-written songs. The songs are written by Benj Pasek and Justin Paul, who also wrote the La La Land soundtrack, and they also wrote Dear Evan Hansen. If you don't know what that is, it's a show on Broadway that got really, really big, and it's one of the best Broadway shows of, at least I know, the decade, maybe of all time for some people. I haven't seen the show, but I do know the cast of it, and I do know about the songs, and I do know that they've done a really good job in both respects, because La La Land also had a fantastic soundtrack. This one has some very memorable songs from the very first opening number till the end of the movie, and they're performed beautifully. Hugh Jackman I've given enough praise to, but Zac Efron's also really good in this movie. He's also really, really great with his singing talent. High School Musical was a great platform to do that. Zendaya's in this movie, who you may know as Michelle from Spider-Man Homecoming, or if you watch the Disney Channel, she was in a show. I don't know about that, but she's also really good here. Rebecca Ferguson is in this movie. We'll talk more about her later because there's a plot point I need to address about that. And Michelle Williams plays Hugh Jackman's wife, who's also really good. The standout for me, though, is actually none of these actors. The standout for me, and I had to look her up, was a woman named Keala Settle. This is her first movie, from what I can gather, and she is incredible in this. She has a song to herself. You must have heard it in the trailers, called This Is Me. Amazing stuff. I can't wait to see more of this person in future movies. She was fantastic in this. If you haven't seen her audition also, I'll put the link of that in the description. Excellent done. She's quite a talent, and her voice is amazing. This is also a beautiful looking movie. The choreography, the cinematography, the way certain shots are composed, it's really quite something. It's quite an experience to behold, actually. And in that sense, the movie, like I said, in terms of a musical sense, and trying to get the sense of a musical, really great. This film really succeeds. There's nice segues into songs. There's a nice way of handling how the songs are important and how they tell stories. It's not just simply like, oh, we have nothing else to do, so might as well just start singing. No, there's proper handling in terms of how music is in this movie. This is also a solidly directed film in that sense, because certain sequences are so extravagant and involve all sorts of trapeze stunts or elephants coming into the room. It's pretty crazy at times, and all of those things were handled really well. There are problems with the movie, though. I would say the biggest issue with it, however, is its storytelling. This is not a very narratively strong film, but I think people going into this film might overlook that a lot, because you're going into the film for the musical aspect, and you're going to get that. You get that in all its glory, and it's really great. But if you are looking into the film, which I do, I found problems in terms of how the story was being told. And I think my biggest issue with it is sometimes the film either rushes through aspects of Barnum's life as a boy when he was poor, or when he was older and he loses his job and stuff. When you look at all of those things, there's this whole concept about Barnum wanting to get more and more and more and become better and better and better, but the movie is building up to the fact that what you have is amazing in itself. You don't need to have more and more in your life. Now, I get that's the message, but it takes until the end of the film to really understand that, because the film either skips through certain parts of Barnum's life, because there's this musical number. He starts off as a kid. It's called A Million Dreams, I think. When you start that off, it goes through this montage of Barnum's life until he is older and he marries Michelle Williams. But until that point, there isn't much to latch on to until, like I said, the very end of the movie. And so for a long time, you don't really care about Barnum himself or some of the other characters. There is not so much character development in this movie as much as you may think there is. There are certain moments in terms of the songs which give some development, like this relationship between Zac Efron and Zendaya and the Kiala Settle song. So in terms of that, there are some things, but it's not as much in depth as I would have liked it to be. Now, I did mention Rebecca Ferguson is in this movie, and I said I'll talk more about that later. She plays a singer who Barnum discovers and wants to make her more famous to people in America. She's from Britain. And so he brings her over, and there's an entire subplot which is about him and this singer. And this is a part of the film which is supposed to give some kind of tension. It's supposed to show how Barnum is getting distracted from certain things. The film comes to a halt at this point. There's 20 minutes of this film here, and the film is 2 hours long, where it just really has nothing going for it. It's this part of the film which is easily the most uninteresting part of the film. It's the part where you're thinking, I want to go back to the circus. I want to go back to what's going on in New York, because over there are tensions between the public who don't really want these freaks in the circus, and they don't want Barnum's entire group taking over. That tension was more interesting for me and narratively strong for me than it was the Rebecca Ferguson storyline. She's very good in the movie, and she's the only one I don't think who sings her by herself. Every other actor in the film, I think, was using their own voice, which makes sense. If you hear Rebecca Ferguson's character singing in the movie, there is a reason behind that. But it does meander a bit. As it stands, though, aside from all those things, if you overlook all those things, you'll have a good time. This film does have noticeable flaws, though. It is not the greatest movie. It does have issues, but I still enjoyed it for what it was. This was still a fun time at the movies, and I'm sorry if this was running a little long. And I still enjoyed the film. I still think it's worth your time. I think the soundtrack's really great. It's very well acted. It's well directed. And the songs are excellent. I'm gonna give The Greatest Showman an 8 out of 10. That grade boost simply because of the music. I loved the music in this film. It was such an experience. Guys, thank you so much as always for watching. Look forward to more reviews very, very soon. As always, if you like this, please do subscribe. And as always, I'll see you guys in the movies.